Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Spin It Social Hour. My name is Stefan Kaplan, and it is an absolute pleasure to be here with everyone this week. Wow, on show number 43, here we are, every other Thursday evening, normally at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, but today we're here at 6 p.m. Why? Well, we have a very special guest all the way from Stockholm, Sweden, and I can't wait to bring her on. I tell you, I'm now traveling around the world looking for the best of the best in photography and storytelling. And the Spin It Social Hour is a labor of love born out of care and concern for our photo community. When the pandemic hit, I decided that I was going to create the Spin It Social Hour and try to help photographers get their names out there more. We've all been hit hard by COVID, but the photography community has been hit really hard as well. Many jobs have been lost. Work has slowed down. It's starting to pick up a little for a lot of photographers. We're getting vaccines and many other things, so hopefully things will rebound. But my job here is out of passion and purpose to help the photo community. So once again, my name is Stefan Kaplan. Welcome to the Spin It Social Hour. I am a social media and visual strategist. I've worked with the likes of the Pulitzer Prizes, AARP, the Jackson Charitable Foundation, Dr. Alice Wilder, and many, many others. I'm also an adjunct professor at AARP. I'm an adjunct professor at FIT. And I am also someone who was a photo editor at the New York Times for 15 years. I was a supervising photo editor for the New York Times wire service, and it was a great honor to do that for 15 years. But now, as a social media and visual consultant, I've created the Spin It Social Hour, and today we are here to bring on Lola Akinmade Åkerström. And I have to tell you, she's here from Stockholm. She's staying up late for us, and it is going to be an absolute pleasure to bring her on. So let's get to it. I'm going to give her the build-up that she deserves, that we give every photographer, and I hope you enjoy this. Little antsy here, so sorry, folks. I got my first shot today, so I'm a little riled up. And you know what? That's normal. So here we go. Everyone has a story, and I want to help people to tell their stories without putting them in a box, says Lola Akinmade Åkerström, photojournalist and travel writer whose best-selling book, LAGOM, The Swedish Secret of Living Well, has been translated into 18 languages. Now based in Stockholm, Lola was born in Nigeria and was educated in the U.S. She graduated with a master's degree in information systems and specialized in geographic information systems for more than 12 years. In 2002, she volunteered to help the media teams cover the Eco Challenge race, roughly 280 miles around Fuji. The experience made her realize that she could travel and document her experiences with people and places. When she got back, she started a blog and went for it. It took 7 years, but as soon as she developed enough traction, Lola quit her job. I'd rather be happy living as a starving artist life, she says, than be an unhappy programmer with lots of money. Her work has since appeared in such media as Slate, AFAR, The Guardian, Lonely Planet, and the BBC. In addition to LAGOM, she wrote Due North, which was a Lowell Thomas Gold winner for Best Travel Book. She also won the 2018 Travel Photographer of the Year Bill Muster Award as the most influential people of African descent award within media and culture. Most recently, she was awarded the most impactful piece of writing at the inaugural Bessie Awards. It is important to me that anyone who views my photos sees the person in the photo and their humanity first, she says. When you see their humanity, you can't use the environment against them. You just see them. Folks, please help me welcome Lola Akinmade Åkerström. Hello, Lola.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, no problem at all. I have to tell you, I don't know what they put in that shot, but I'm all juiced up. So I'm sorry if I made a couple of bungles there, but I feel like my system is revved up for some reason. So I'm going to slow down and throughout the show and let you tell your story really well.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for that really warm introduction. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all. I tell you, going through your work was something really just beautiful, marvelous, inspirational and just grabbed me all week, putting together that body of work and seeing the travels that you've done, all the people that you've met. And your whole story just captivated me since the minute I landed on it. And I'll be honest, I had heard of you, but I didn't know a lot about you. And I was on the Twitter handle, Black Women Photographers, and I was looking through a lot of things, and you surfaced again. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give her a call. And then we spoke, and here you are.
Yes.
So, Lola, the big question, first of all, how are you? How's your family? And how are things in Stockholm, Sweden?
You know what? Knock on wood, everyone is safe, healthy. As with the pandemic, it's really rising here in Sweden. Sweden has a different strategy, but, we're staying as safe as we can, within this. So
yeah, I know Europe is going through a lot right now. So yes. and the whole, other parts of the world. So we're thinking of you all, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's late there, so thank you for being here.
No worries.
So Lola, tell us, how did the journey get started? I mean, it started in Nigeria, and then it came to the U.S. and then Sweden. Tell us about your journey, Lola.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was born and raised in Nigeria, came from a traveling family. My dad is a geologist. My grandfather was in the shipping industry. So we traveled a lot. It was a family that had travel in the blood. But then when I was 15, I moved to the U.S. to start college. And that was where I lived for 16 years, went to college, studied as a programmer, information systems, worked in that field for a long time before moving to Sweden in 2000, the end of 2009, kind of at the age of 2010. Mm-hmm. And so I've been in Sweden ever since. And I think it was that transition from the US to Sweden, when I was already making a major life transition, I decided, let me go, for this creative passion of mine, this field, because I've always, loved kind of photography, and I kind of got into photography by accident, actually.
Really?
I used to be an oil painter. And so when I traveled, I actually took photos so I could come back to paint from the photos. And then I started realizing I felt like I was duplicating effort, so I started exploring photography as that medium of exploration. And so if you even look at my work, you can see that I used to be an oil painter in the way I edit the photos. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of my journey, and then came to Sweden. And so that was the transition point where I started kind of going more full-time, professional into photography. So.
Well, we have a lot of people watching already. Ronaldo's watching. Genevieve Michelle Bryan from Black Enterprises here. Pradnya Haldipur from Silver Springs, Maryland. Damon Brown, great to see you too. Dr. Tachi, Mediascope is in the house.
Yeah, welcome.
And, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here with Lola. Tim Sohn, social media. Bjorn is here. Media tours, media boat tours in New York City. Anyway, Lola, you're all about inspiration. You are the definition of inspiration, because not only do you travel the world looking to inspire people, but now, photography, you're an author, you're an entrepreneur, you're a global traveler, and number one, you're a tremendous human being. And, I have to tell you, your story captivates many people the world over, I know, because I've done my research. But what is it now, at this point in your career, after having been in this space for such a while now, what is it that still drives you as this whole multimedia entrepreneur, author, superstar that I call you?
Thank you. I think very early on, I was lucky to find my purpose, knowing that my purpose is tied to culture and connection, right? So I grew up in Nigeria, and it's over 250 different tribes that speak over 500 unique languages and dialects. So for me, culture was really very important in terms of going beneath the nuances of culture, understanding what makes us different, why we have to be different, the bridges, that can connect us. And so that always drives my work. Mm-hmm. And so even if you look at everything I do, whether it's photography or writing or even my new kind of entrepreneurial project, culture and cultural understanding is at the core. And for me, I always say that the source of your voice as a creative is often tied to a source of your pain sometimes. And when I moved from Nigeria to the US, I was isolated a lot because I was already coming in with kind of, my own culture, my own ideals. And when I moved to the US was trying to box me because they didn't know what to do with me. And so I was isolated a lot, right? And so out of that isolation came my kind of purpose of trying to build connection, trying to say, you know what, people should be able to tell their own stories themselves. They need to show you that this is who they are without being boxed. And so a lot of that translates into my photography, into my environmental kind of portraits of people where I want you to connect with the person, look into their eyes and just see them first, who they are. And so a lot of that ties into my work, even with the book, with the book LAGOM. It's about cultural understanding, trying to bridge and foster understanding, because I feel like isolation comes when we don't understand each other. We then isolate and exclude.
Well, the thing that got to me when I was reading your story and really doing all the research, and I really applaud you for your whole attitude, but that's part of you. That's who you are. You're what I call a trailblazer, and trailblazer to me is the perfect definition of who you are, in my opinion, from my mouth. But the thing is that because you don't accept anybody else's definition of who you should be.
Correct.
You don't, and nobody should, but you personally have taken it to new heights because of all the different ventures you have. I mean, Lola, you have your hand. If you were a chef, you would have your hand in about 10 pots of soup.
Exactly. And toes too. I don't know, all digits. Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, what is it about doing so many different things that continues to inspire you to continuously jump into something else?
Correct. And you know what? I actually found a word for this recently, right? So for the longest time, I thought I was just a weird person, where they say, oh, you're a Jill of all trades, master of none, all that. But I'm like, you know what? I'm actually good at a lot of these things I do. And so I found a word called multi-potentialite, which is, there are people called multipods. Exactly. So these are people that just do a lot of things. Or they may be called a polymath, where they do a lot of things because that is what drives them. The creativity drives them, and they do a lot of things well, and so that also was a problem for me, actually, in my career, because people were trying to, okay, well, are you an author? Then pick a lane. Are you a photographer? Then pick a lane. And I'm like, but I can actually do all those things and I can do them well. So why do I have to pick a lane?
Right.
Why not?
Right.
Why am I not allowed, to actually just live my full creativity or my full self in whatever space my spirit wants to kind of, feel. So that's one of the things, and all through wherever I jump, there is that thread of culture and cultural connection. So no matter what it is, that is the one thread that links it all.
Right. Well, I heard you tell a few stories, and one that I listened to about 3 or 4 hours worth of video of you doing all my research. And I have to tell you, I really do. It was one thing stood out was the time you said somebody asked you that because you've been published and work with National Geographic, that they said that, oh, well, you have to be extraordinary.
Exactly.
To work with National Geographic. Tell us about that moment.
Yeah, I can tell you that story because it's it was a talk I gave about finding your quote-unquote extraordinary voice, right?
Right.
And so I was at a travel festival in London, and, it was great. Everybody's excited, meeting new people. And so I met this middle-aged white lady, never met before, just total strangers. And so we were talking about, talking shop. What do you do? And then she's like, oh, where have you been published? And I said, oh, National Geographic Traveler, and mentioned a few places. And then she's like, really? I thought you had to be extraordinary to be published by them.
Wow.
And so I was stunned, first of all, just stunned. that this stranger would immediately see me and assume that I wasn't, quote unquote, extraordinary, or there was nothing that I could offer.
Yeah.
And then when I started kind of processing her comments, I realized, especially talking to one of my mentors, she said that people can only see as far for you as they see for themselves. So if she doesn't see herself as extraordinary or even worthy of being published by whatever dream publications she has, then why would she see me as that, especially me, whose society tries to put in a predefined box, right? So there are so many, elements and levels to that conversation, but that was one that really stuck out, kind of early on in my career.
Yeah, no, I mean, it left me dumbfounded in a way that somebody would actually say that to somebody. I mean, she meant no harm, of course, but the fact that people have this mindset, when they look at somebody, like you said, you're put in a box.
Correct.
And you're categorized. And that is, the one thing that should not be done anywhere with anyone,
Exactly. But, and to add, as a kind of Black African woman working as a professional travel photographer, a lot of my colleagues are, I always say, white guys that look like they just came down Everest looking all rugged and then went to go post for GQ. And then I have to kind of compete with that with a photo editor. Right. There's already that kind of prejudice and kind of like stereotyping within the industry, even though my portfolio could be stronger. So those are the things that I kind of I had to battle against and still battle, in this industry. So.
That's a really great point because, we even people in the industry, I'm sure, within reason, have certain images of some people or thoughts of some people without drawing conclusions, of course. Yeah. But the bottom line is that it happens. And I'm sure, the travels and the things you've done. I know now there's one place in the world. I mean, you've been to a lot of places, but I know there's one place in the world that you have right up here that you have to get to one day. And what is that one place, Lola?
It's the North Pole. No, I don't know. It's the North Pole. And, I always call that my little saw with a bandage. Each time we talk about it, it's like a bandage getting ripped off that saw.
Right.
No, but, there is a story behind it because that story kind of also frames the way I go through life. It's many years ago, there was a competition, they were trying to send a writer to the North Pole. And so I entered because, of course, it was the North Pole, it was my dream. And then, we campaigned for votes, but I missed the opportunity kind of by 3 votes.
Right.
And then what made it worse was people that I knew and friends said they didn't vote because they didn't understand why I wanted to go to the North Pole. They didn't understand it. And I'm like, what? But then I realized that if my friends were already, back then anyway, those friends were putting me in a box because they didn't understand my passion and my drive and my need, how much more strangers, right? And so a lot of that started kind of forming, my mantra, which is why not? Because I ask the question, why not a lot? And I ask it verbally or kind of metaphorically through my work or through my actions, like, why not?
Right.
Why am I not allowed to go to the North Pole? Why can't you see me at the North Pole? Why can't you see me in this? Why not?
Right.
So.
Well, I tell you, I'm sure when any young, little girls and little boys, of course, too, but little girls especially, especially whether African American or wherever, from Haiti, Africa, wherever, look at you. They must get so inspired by your stories and your desire to document society at large, people all around the world, But I have to tell you, you're not only extraordinary, you're a bundle of energy. Wherever you go, I came across these photos, and I have to ask you before we get into the rest of your work and entrepreneurship. Where did you develop this signature pose of yours?
Yes,
is this like a Lola Wonder Woman thing?
It is my signature jump, and I think what always surprises people is that when they see me in person, they're surprised I get that eye off the ground. I'm like, I'm actually quite athletic. Like people are surprised that I get that kind of leverage. But yeah, no, it's something I do, when I travel.
Were you into track and field that we don't know about
No,
or something?
I actually was a rugby player, like semi-pro for over 10 years. So there's a bit of strength.
Wait, stop the presses. You were also on top of everything else a rugby player.
Yeah, I used to play rugby Division 1 and Division 2 in the US before I moved to Sweden. Yeah.
Okay, so I have to go back and read about another 10 years worth of stuff. Wow.
Exactly.
Wow, amazing. But you've done this like around the world. Look at these photos. Yeah. I love these. Even the Great Wall of China.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully I didn't offend anybody, but yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think so. And I mean, I love it. Yeah. I love it. But, and even with bees.
Bees, why not? Why not? Right? Why not?
Well, bees fly. Why shouldn't you? Right?
Why not?
But let's get to some serious stuff here, because I want to let people know not only are you an incredible photographer, which we showed a huge body of your work opening the show. I hope you liked the opening. But you're also, as I said, an entrepreneur and an author of several books. I know that you've written LAGOM. You've also written.
Due
North, which is right here. Yes. But also your latest book, which is going to be coming out, is not just about travel, it's about something else. And why don't you tell us about your latest book quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said earlier on, I'm all about culture and cultural connection and nuance. And so when I wrote LAGOM, it was an objective view of the Swedish kind of mindset, both the good parts and the not so great parts. So in every mirror, She's Black is kind of like almost, okay, so what is it to thrive or to live or to survive with that mindset, within the society as a Black woman? Because a lot of people ask me, what's the difference between living in the US versus living in Sweden as a Black woman? And so I said, okay, I'll write a book and I'll make it a fiction novel and give it. So the book is coming out in September. I'm really excited about it. It's fiction, and very character driven. So, and it's been getting a lot of great reviews. So I'm excited about it.
Okay, excellent. And tell us about Due North as well, because first of all, that photo is such a beautiful photo of that child running across the land. But tell us about Due North, because that's a true collection, as it says, of travel observations, reflections, and across cultures, colors, and continents.
Yes. So that was my kind of first, I've contributed to many books in the past, but this was my first kind of solo book that I actually self-published. The other two are published by, publishers, but this one is self-published, so it holds a special place in my heart. And I wanted to create a collection of just over 20 years of travels, or some of the experiences I've had, some of the stories, some of the people I've met. Because at the time when I published it, there weren't that many books, especially by Black travel photographers, that also kind of chronicled a little bit of, those stories and those anecdotes from the roads. So I wanted to give people an insight into kind of who I was, how I moved through the world. And so the book is kind of divided in north, west, east, and south, and just groups lots of different stories from different parts of the world. So.
Okay. Sorry, I was having a technical difficulty and I was putting you on the screen, so therefore you could tell everybody the story. So one of the things that I also know is that you've been a big speaker. You've spoken at a lot of things. You've done TED Talks, many things, but I think in particular, the most influential people of African descent must be truly special for you to speak at and to be a part of.
Yeah, so it's a community, because with the UN had an initiative, I think it's a decade of celebrating different kind of people of African descent doing different things in different industries, right? And so it covers everything from politics to media to business. And so I was, honored to be one of the kind of nominees in 2018, into the media culture category. And so this snapshot is actually from a meeting we had with the United Nations, it's UNTAD, and they're launching this year, the year of the creative economy. And so we were, so they got lots of people within the creative fields, like, one of the VPs at Warner Media and Empire Records, and, Bolanle Austin Peters, who runs Terra Culture in Nigeria, just kind of people that are making strides within culture and creative kind of industries to come together to see how we can support and help amplify this UN message, this UN Creative Economy Year. So that's kind of why I got involved in that.
Well, I think that's absolutely wonderful, because to be able to tap into anybody's creativity, I think brings about something in people everywhere that gives them more inspiration and hope in life. Because, let's face facts, we're living in a different world right now. And especially now, being at home so much, being under lockdown a lot, and many other things. I think this one period of time, we're experiencing it now, but we're going to reflect back on it as being a time that launched a lot of people into doing a lot of different things.
Yes, no, absolutely. And it really helped people. I think one of the blessings, even though it's been a really rough time for everyone, one of the blessings is that it left people kind of tap into their creativity,
right.
And just bring things that they normally wouldn't have brought up to the surface out. And then because everyone is at least going through something, it connected us, all of us, that way, where now people aren't as vulnerable about, aren't as shy about sharing their vulnerabilities or saying this is what I'm doing, or this is what I need, or this is where I need support. So I think it has really kind of helped, people kind of start living more of themselves.
Absolutely. It's funny because when you think about it, right, Lola, we had to stop traveling, which is your biggest passion.
Yes.
So hello, Keiko. Wonderful of you to be here. So you had to stop. We all had to stop traveling, but it's amazing, though, because of the digital all the technology that's at our fingertips now, we're able to cross over, these normal, distances in an instant now. Yes. And that's one of the things that the virtual world has brought forth, is this ability to communicate more than ever around the world, right?
Yes, yes.
So I know that in particular, one of the things that you do, and we'll get to it in a bit, first I want to go through some of your work, is that Bjorn says that photo right here reminds him of Barcelona, and it does. It does. But the thing is that your work with many local artisans and many other creatives around the world has taken a whole new dimension with Local Purse, which we'll talk about in just a bit. But it really is fascinating, the whole road that you continue to journey down. And I have to tell you, I'm so glad you're here tonight. So let's continue to go through some of this work. So why don't you tell us about a few of these photos before we jump into more of the other ventures that you've gone into?
No, absolutely. So this photo was taken in Peru, in a small village called Cacacoyo. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it properly. But there you can meet, the ladies that, are dyeing, fabrics and creating stuff from alpaca fibers. And so this photo was, the ladies who are kind of, presenting, showing their work. And then this boy came skipping by. And he was, at that moment, the epitome of joy, right? Of that moment that we all miss as adults, where, when we are no longer, that moment when you're not yet cynical about the world, the world is just this bright, amazing oyster. And so just him skipping by, I took that shot because that shot always reminds me to always stay a child inside, and that's also why it's also the cover of that book, is always have that childlike curiosity about the world, because it just keeps your spirit fresh.
So I assume that was an easy pick as the cover photo for your book, right?
Yeah, it was. It was. I mean, just composition wise as well, but just the fact, just the meaning the photo has, for me as well. It was.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful moment and everything. And we skipped over this because we were just showing it. It's so beautiful. All you want to do is really look at it. But tell us a moment about this beautiful photo here.
Yeah, so this was taken in Mauritius, and this was some of the traditional dances they're showing. So they were just kind of demonstrating how they dance and move with the with the skirts. And so, as a photographer, you're always looking for light. And I said, she's got this, like right at the yellow down there, it feels like a flame, like if I get her just dancing into the light, I might be able to get some of that back, light, side light in. And so that's what I did. I just said, just dance towards the light. And she's like, why? I'm like, just keep dancing towards the light,
I know my co-producer, Jonathan Borstein, who's behind the scenes, and we'll bring him out in a bit, is that I'm sure he's looking at this photo and he's very big into flamenco dancing and everything. Yes. So he loves all of that. So I'm sure he loves this photo just looking at it. But anyway, so, I have to tell you, going through some of these, I picked this one because there's so much joy in this photo as well, but yet the beautiful, beautiful outfits. Tell us a little about this one, please.
So I love this photo one because, it's from Nigeria. I grew up in Lagos, and these are women that you just call your aunties. They're not related to you. They're just aunties, And so this was you can see they're holding the palm fronds. So this was Palm Sunday, and in Nigeria you kind of dance through. This was a church procession, so you dance through the streets with the palms, the palm fronds, and so it was just there is a way in Nigerian auntie moves, that's just slow and deliberate and I'm like, I need to catch that, and so I danced. I went in front of them and kind of got low while they were dancing towards me in that kind of slow. And so that was it, because that photo kind of captures that, that confidence,
It sure does. It sure does. And I've been around a lot of cultures growing up. I went to a very European school, the Lycée Français, where I had friends from Africa, all the parts of Africa, Togo, many, many places, and Haiti too. And I have to tell you, that photo that you took right there definitely captured that,
Yeah, yes.
And so this is the colors on this. Wow. I mean, I was just in heaven looking at some of these. Tell us about this one here.
So this was actually, it was actually on a project in collaboration with South Africa Tourism and National Geographic Channel. Mm-hmm. So National Geographic Channel did a bunch of vignettes following different photographers around South Africa. So I was, kind of tasked with going around Durban and KwaZulu-Natal, the region. And so National Geographic followed me, and it was like a 1-minute video that aired, like an ad on National Geographic Channel.
Okay.
And so this was in Durban, and so I wanted to kind of get closer to the guy, because sometimes when people kind of wear traditional things, I didn't want him to just be like this object just posing. So I said, I want to come see you. What's your name? And come straight into his face, so that you just look into his eyes first before you see,
right,
what's around him. And so for me, that's kind of what makes this photo special, is there's that connection between us, and
there is that moment as a photographer where you can approach a subject and you take the picture quickly and then talk to the subject sometimes for a moment. And then there's those times where you first really connect with the subject, and then you do the same thing and you get a whole different result, of course.
Exactly.
Because you've created that moment of intimacy, of connection that brings you two together. Whereas if you're just walking down the street as a street photographer and you grab that moment, you may get that certain like glare or stare.
Exactly. And if you see a lot of the portraits I take where the person is looking at you, straight on, for me, there's that moment.
Right.
There's just a moment, and a photographer, there's a moment where you're both looking at each other and nothing else. Right. And there's that moment of intimacy where you just fully see each other.
That's right.
And for me, that's what I live for when I travel, on the road. When I take those portraits, there's a moment they see me, I see them, and boom, I take the shot. And then you as the viewer can then see straight at them and just see them, for who they are. And those are the shots where it's, with the eye connection shots then.
Absolutely. I have to tell you, speaking of seeing things, folks, please make sure that you share this broadcast. Make sure you tell all your friends about it by sharing on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. Earlier, we had a bit of a connection problem with LinkedIn. I fixed it while Lola was on screen, but I want all our LinkedIn viewers to know that if any part of the broadcast was cut off, I will repost the entire broadcast on LinkedIn once this show is done. So please know that you will not be cheated out of Lola's story. Okay. But Lola, some of the portraits that I went through, I selected a few. There's something about a beautiful, warm smile that will always grab everybody around the world. This gentleman right here grabbed my heart when I looked at it because he has such kindness on his face. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so this was, I think, was taken in Uzbekistan. And for me, there's some photographers that really focus on the aesthetics, right? Where it has to be kind of the right, composition, the backlit, everything, where the person is just an object for the photographer to create their vision. And for me, it's actually the opposite. So a lot of my photos are really, really simple, but the person comes through, their personality, or you get to see them. And for me, that's what's most important, because I want the people I'm photographing to kind of present how they want to be shown to the world. And that's why I often say that I could never be like a just straight up war photojournalist or documentary just photographer, because I'm a bit too subjective for that, right? Because I really want the people to show themselves. I'm almost like I'm going behind history and trying to change narratives through my work, So that's why, in that way. And so for me, it's important if the person feels good. I want to show just a more holistic, a more complete photo of just them as a person, so that you see them first. Like you said, just humanizing people.
Right. No, I've had numerous photographers on the show at 43 shows now that have told many stories about doing portraits, from Peter De Silva to Claudia Paul, all these different great photographers. And every photographer has their own unique style, but the one thing that every photographer will truly agree on is that when you take somebody's portrait, they're giving you that moment.
Yeah, exactly. I always say that. And I always say that the moment you ask someone to take their photo, it no longer becomes about what you want. That's right. As a photographer, but what they are willing to give you of themselves.
That's right.
That also changes the dynamic.
No, it's true. No, I do. Go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
No, because I say a lot of photographers, especially when I'm mentoring people or talking to people, and they say, how do you walk up to strangers? I say, it depends on the mood changes the moment you go in, knowing that you are giving them the power to reject you.
Right.
Because it has nothing to do with you. And the reason why a lot of them are afraid is about that nobody likes being rejected. So you put your own emotions above the person's.
Right.
And then when people reject you, they usually do it in front of other people, which brings shame. So that's it. It's the moment you realize it's no longer about what you want, but what they're willing to give you, then it changes the way you actually approach people.
Right. Well, that's why I was just speaking with a great photographer the other day, a good friend of mine, Jeffrey Salter, who does many, many covers for many magazines, from athletes to many other things. But he's phenomenal. And Jeffrey is, one of the premier portrait artists out there. And, Donatella Lorch is watching. Very interesting. She says, Donnie Lorch is a legend in my book. She was one of the big foreign war correspondents for the New York Times, and has lived all over the world, Nepal, everywhere. And she's now teaching at Georgetown University. So that's an honor to have Donnie here. So, but Jeffrey, says that, you're capturing someone at that moment, but he spends time with them, talking with them and getting to know them during the shoot. Now, of course, he doesn't always have that time. Photo shoots are tight, but you still, as you're shooting, you can still talk about things that you can relate to,
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes travel photographers, because, I work mostly as a travel photographer, we sometimes have less time. Like we can't stay in a place for a long time. We have to go through. And so for me, it's important to properly acknowledge somebody, even if I'm gonna be there with them for 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. Acknowledging somebody, not just greeting, but actually getting their name, mm-hmm. and then calling them by their name. That alone already starts creating, like, stripping down barriers, because it already says, I see you.
Yeah. And
the quickest way you can tell a foreigner or a stranger or somebody that I see you is by just calling them by their name.
You know, I was going to wind up another clip, but we have other clips I want to show, so I didn't want to go crazy. But I did see a clip of you at a talk that was really touching to me, whereas you were talking about the photos that were on the screen. And I loved the way you delivered the segment that you were talking about. And as the portraits are going across the screen, you do it. I know, you know what you did, right? Remember? I see you. Is it the one about
I see you? Yes.
I see you.
Yes.
So, you know, I love that. And, you know, when I was looking at these photos, I kept hearing you say that when I was putting together this show. And it was very endearing. So, you know, thank you for being who you are and the way you approach for the way you approach photography and the way you approach humanity in general.
Yeah.
You know,
it's really, that's all what we want. We all want to be seen, just for who we are, right?
Yeah. Well, Damon Brown, who's a really incredible entrepreneur and writer, who's published many books, says recognizing others by their name is so powerful. Well said.
Yeah. So thank you, Damon. Yeah. And it's so easy too. It's very easy for us to do. Just
I mean, look at all these beautiful eyes and this family here. I mean, this family photo is one that even if I could just hang on my wall and I could look into their eyes for days, you know?
Yeah, and it's funny because the guy on the left, you know, this was also in Uzbekistan, and he was just a farmer on the side, like a shepherd on the side of the road. So we're just walking by. And then I approached him and said, oh, can I get your photo, you know, through the interpreter? Took his photo, and then 10, 15 minutes later, we're in his house. You know, he's got his family. And so it's, when you approach people, you never know, you know, what the energy you emit, you know, people feel it. And then they see, can I trust you enough to bring you into my world? He was just standing by the side of the road while we were walking by. And I said, I would love to photograph him. And before you knew it, he let us into his house, brought us in, and was showing us pictures and stuff. So no,
just beautiful. Yeah. But you know, there's also the art of street photography, of course, and walking around. And my favorite thing to do in life is, you know, I grew up in Greenwich Village, and I used to love sitting outdoors on stoops and in the park in Washington Square Park, watching people go by. And I realized that's what captured me about photography later on, is that I love to people watch. Yeah. So capturing people on film. Back then, film, and now digital. I just dated myself.
It's all right. I was using film too. So I'm older than I do.
But the thing is that's right. Settle down out there, youngsters. But the thing is that, you know, I realized later on that's what really my real passion was, capturing those moments on the street. And this is a beautiful photo. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, so that's the thing, because I'm also, you know, in between, I do some street photography, but I'm also very careful because I don't like sneaking shots of people.
Right.
But if the person adds a little element to what I see, then I can kind of take that shot. So with this lady, you know, I watched her, there was that kind of natural spotlight, and she was looking through the windows, and it just made a great kind of scene unfolding in front of me, and so I shot it, right? But normally I always try to avoid kind of sneaking, you know, shots, you know, because I know how it feels to look over your shoulder and then click somebody, you know. But with this one, I always tell people that if you're going to do kind of street photography, make sure that the person you're not focusing solely on the person, but that the person is part of the story of the scene that you're trying, you know, to capture.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it depends on the type of photography you're doing, of course, but I definitely understand that, because I'm a little mix of both. I have to say, you know, I'm a New Yorker, so I'm a little brazen when it comes to taking some photos. But the thing about this, Lola, is that, first of all, the light is magnificent. There's nothing else that was needed except the light. But when she obviously walked into the picture, you look at this and you just wonder, what is she thinking at that moment when she's looking, and the reflection of herself in the window makes it magnificent,
Thank you.
Where was this?
This was in France, Nice.
France. Okay,
France,
Nice. Yeah. Okay. It's one beautiful scene out of Nice, that's for sure.
Thank you.
So before we go on, let me just tell everybody, we're streaming here thanks to the incredible platform called StreamYard. I was blessed to discover this platform when the pandemic hit, and I have to tell you, StreamYard is the most amazing platform there is to live stream from. Here's a quick word from our sponsor. Folks, I normally wouldn't do that, but I wanted to segue into that because if it wasn't for the power of live streaming, we would not be bringing you the incredible Lola all the way from Stockholm, Sweden. So I have to tell you, it's a gift to be able to stream everywhere now. And but as we continue on here, Lola, G. Murray says here, this photo really tells a story. Great highlights. We have to understand there's a whole another part, of course, of life that we document as photographers. And there's a lot of great things out there. And then there's a lot of really people who do some incredibly difficult work out there every day, and especially a lot of women in many other countries. Tell us about how you feel, how you go about documenting many different cultures, in whether it's the travel stuff, the travel sector, or documenting life in general when you're capturing moments like this where women are working.
Correct. So for me, like with this was shot in Nepal, and the ladies, I believe, they were cleaning and washing bricks. So those bricks could be reused for building. And so for me, it's always about disposition, right? I just reading body language, reading energy, feeling if it's something that the women have been forced to do, versus if they are actually, it's just work, as a source of income. And what I found really fascinating when I was in Nepal is because I stayed in this kind of homestay project in a village called a town called Panawati. Okay. And most of the women are the ones that run the homestay, because many of the guys are also like guides, that take, maybe travelers to base camp or, so different paths, so that community, the women are actually just taking matters into their own hands, empowering themselves, and then just making their own income and being financially independent from their spouses. So that trip to Nepal was a very inspiring one for me, because those women were just all badasses, opening their homes to travelers, making their own money. Where's my husband? Oh, he's trekking with tourists in Nepal, but I'm good, like, base camp, but I'm good here, So I love that, finding women that it doesn't matter even if it looks like hard labor, if it's something that's giving them kind of financial independence.
That's right.
That I think is really, really important. Where I feel like I'm working with my hands and I'm doing my own and making my own money. So
I learned a lot about that from our friend who's watching, and I'll introduce you to her one day, because you two should know each other. Her name, she was on just before saying Nepal is one of the most incredible places for a photographer. Is Donatella Lorch, and Donnie lived there during the big earthquake. She was there with her son Lucas, and when the earthquake hit. And, it was incredible. It was so sad. It was so difficult. And the one thing that, Donatella did with her son, Lucas, I have to tell you, is an amazing quick story. They actually ended up in the village of Kotdanda. They actually ended up raising after the earthquake with social media efforts and other things. And I worked with them on a few things, but they did all the fundraising efforts. I helped them with communications. Donnie raised, and her son Lucas, amazingly, like $35,000 US for the
that's
village.
Amazing. That's amazing.
And this was her 10-year-old's thought process of doing this. He's such an amazing child, but they told me a lot about Nepal, and everything you say rings true.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's amazing. I think once you go there, you connect with people. You can't not like, and that's the thing that's amazing with travel is once you connect with people,
right?
You're never the same, right? Especially when something happens to the people you leave behind or those memories. You want to help. You want to say, look, I remember. I'm here for you as well. Mm-hmm. And remember I was talking about it doesn't matter what the women are doing as long as they feel empowered. This is a photo that shows that. Like if you go to the previous one, it shows that she's a farmer, but she's standing with pride. She's owning a space. This is a domain, and she's inviting me in with confidence. That's why I really love this photo.
Well, and you think about it, even here in the U.S., all around the world, women are paid less than men. In general. So then you take the other part of the equation and you put in people, women who are working in really tough situations, whatever type of labor it may be. And yet they still come out of it in certain ways because, as you said, it's about independence. Correct. It's about earning a living and knowing that they don't have to rely on just anyone but themselves.
Yeah, and plus women are just naturally resilient and tough.
Of course they are. Of course they are. My mother was one of those, so I know all about it. But from Lagos to everywhere, I mean, just the photos are just incredible. But so I have to ask you this question, Lola.
Yes.
You've traveled to many cold weather countries. Yes. Okay, you live in Sweden, but Nicole Sajou says loves the subject. A very dear friend of mine, family to me, actually. Forget friend. Okay. But the thing is that tell us, what is your? Are you going to say Sweden automatically since you live there?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so
it
where
depends
is
on the question.
What is your favorite cold weather country?
My favorite cold. I really loved Greenland. Because Greenland is just one of those places that really arrests you and shows you just how small you are as a human being. It just kind of flattens you, And when I was there in Greenland, there was also like a snowstorm, and we had to take off in a small plane in the snowstorm, and the wind was shaking the plane, and I'm like, how on earth are we going in there? Like, hell no. But we took off, and it's so Greenland is just an amazing place. It just feels like, like when you walk into a church and then somebody tells you, shh, keep quiet.
Yeah.
That's how it feels like when you arrive into Greenland, like, then it just like, keep quiet. You're in a place where you have to revere. It's a reverent kind of atmosphere in Greenland. So that's and I went there because I did a photo spread for National Geographic Traveler in the UK on Greenland, and it was following the steps of the first African in Greenland.
Oh, wow.
His name is Tete Michel Pomase. And he wrote a book, An African in Greenland, based on his experiences in the 60s. And so I was fascinated by this book. It was actually recommended by Marilyn Terrell. She was like,
yes,
you have to check this
Marilyn
book.
Terrell, yes.
Marilyn, I know. Many times, she actually, tagged me on Twitter. And so I became fascinated. I wanted to know his story. And so I read the book and then said, you know what, I want to go to some of the places. And so that photo spread shows my photos, and then I also have some quotes about what he said of those places from the book, Ilulissat looked like this, la 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 la, and so it was a fun kind of assignment to do.
Well, I have to tell you, Marilyn Terrell, who used to work for National Geographic, I met her when I went to Washington about 4 or 5 years ago, and I had the pleasure of hanging out with her for a bit and getting to know her. Nicole says Greenland is now on my list.
Yeah, you should check it out. And you should check out the full Greenland portfolio. Just lots of fun.
Oh yeah, I'm sure everybody's going to check out. Everybody's going to check out your website now. But one of the things that Marilyn said, and I agree with her wholeheartedly, is she called you the irrepressible Lola. And she tweeted about that this week. She tweeted,
she's wonderful.
if everybody looks at Marilyn _Res, R-E-S, Marilyn, Marilyn _Res, R-E-S, you'll see her tweet about Lola. And she's a big fan of Lola's. And she said that Lola is irrepressible and just one of the great women entrepreneurs and photographers out there.
No, I love Marilyn. She's such a champion and she's amazing. And thank you.
She is. But, there's something beautiful about being outdoors in general. And you've experienced so much. Are the Northern Light? I haven't seen the Northern Light yet, so I hope I get to see him one day.
Yeah.
We almost did one year when we took a cruise to Alaska, but we didn't. But tell me, is the Northern Lights, what is it like experiencing them?
So, it's so difficult to explain, right? Because when they are captured on photos, the camera is a lot more sensitive. The sensor is sensitive, so it captures the colors more. The colors are richer when they come through the camera. Right. But even when you see them in person, it's still an amazing feeling because it fills the skies and just the way the light dances and moves. Mm-hmm. And what I think is actually fascinating because, I have a lot of contacts within the Swedish indigenous Sami community, and I've been there and spent some time and taken photographs. And what they say is they can actually tell the weather, what the weather is going to be based on the Northern Lights. So what's going on, at the moment they can tell because, they have to move the reindeer. So they could see if it's dancing a lot, if it's dancing a certain way, they say, it's going to be crap weather tomorrow. Let's not move from here. Let's, So that's what I find really fascinating is cultures that are so tied to nature, that take their cues from nature, that read nature. It just always fascinates me, and isn't that fascinating, Lola? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I got to throw this in there for a second because you just made me think of something really, really just fascinating. Is that here we are in this technological society and world now. And I know many people who rely on apps and all this other stuff to track weather and everything. And listen, it's needed if to find a lot of things. And I know a couple of photographers are going to call me tomorrow and say, hey, what are you talking about? I get great photos because of those apps. Gary, do not hate me for what I just said. But Gary Hirshhorn, who's an amazing, amazing photographer. He's one of my favorites. But you're telling a story here about people who read the weather because of the way they've been brought up, the culture, the affinity and the tie-in that they have for understanding the weather, Yes, absolutely. Reading the weather. And with this picture, because this picture was shot in Jukkasjärvi, in Sweden, in northern Sweden at Nuti Sami Sida's kind of reindeer camp,
Right.
And when I was there, I've been there a couple times, but this particular time, I was talking to Anders, one of the the patrons that was working there, and he was looking at the sky, and we're asking, okay, when are we going to get light? You can't really predict. He looked at the sky, he was looking at kind of the pattern of the clouds, and he said, around 9 o'clock, they'll start showing up.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? And then around 9:05, boom. I'm like, oh, because they are so unpredictable. You don't know, but you know that, some certain weather conditions have to be, to be cold, clear skies, things like that. But then he was looking at the patterns of the clouds and the wind and it was like, around this time. And then they started popping out. So I thought that was fascinating.
Well, blew my mind. That's one of the things that if only more people traveled the way you do and many, travel people do, because you learn so much by being around these fascinating people and the amount of wisdom that they have for the world and for nature in general is just mind blowing, But let's move on here because I have to tell you, I want to live right here. I want to live right here because I want that to be my. I know. So that is only an Anna from the Faroe Islands, and so I was there on assignment. And one of the great things I love about this photo is because there was a group of really young photographers, creatives that were running around, the Faroe Islands, and I was kind of like this old mama tagging with them because
because they were like, you know what, Ollie, Anna, just get all your stuff up onto the roof, because one of them was a fashion photographer. So she was working on this project, And so she's like, everybody get on the roof. Let's do something fun. So I was there and I shot this. So she got the kind of the shot she wanted for our project. But this one I got because it just felt I love the motion, and kind of the energy. But when I talk about photos, like when I'm kind of giving a presentation, I say, as a travel photographer, you don't always want to go for the epic shot.
Right. Because
the epic shot from the Faroe Islands is of the Molasafor, kind of the waterfalls. Everybody knows that shot, right. With just the amazing, backdrop, and then that kind of waterfall going straight. Everybody, if you Google Faroe Islands, that's the shot that comes from.
Right.
You don't always want to go for the epic shot, but you want to go for the memorable shot.
Yes,
and the memorable shot may not be as epic. So I don't consider this an epic shot, but it's a memorable shot. And it's a very different shot from the Faroe Islands.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
When
I do have my epic shot. I do have my own, of the waterfalls.
You have a lot of epic shots.
I do have that. But
the reason the reason I picked this photo was because it's a slice of life, as I would call it, from just somewhere you would never expect this. You would not.
It's fun, and the Ollie and Anna, they invite travelers into their homes, so they make a traditional meal and then talk about the islands. And so when this was so different for them that the neighbors came out. Was like, what are they doing on the roof? And then the neighbors came with like self-taking photos, because it was just a fun moment that the young kind of travelers kind of created, and then I just happened to be there as well and just got caught in the So
if you were looking at this in a magazine, if it wasn't part of a story, you would automatically think that it was an ad for something,
Correct.
But it's not, and that's the beauty of it. It's that it's a real, true slice of life, as I said, know. So Nicole was asking earlier, the Faroe Islands. So therefore, she missed that for a second.
Yes.
But you were talking about being in Greenland. And you were talking also about being around reindeers and everything else. I saw a lot of photos that you took from a shoot that you did.
Yes.
This is, I know, one of your most popular images, but I have to tell you, there's a reason, is because what a magical moment of this person, feeding the reindeer, and it's like anybody else would feed their pets,
Correct. No, I really like the shot because of just the connection with there's just such a respect, with the reindeer and with her. And this, I shot this on assignment for Korean Airlines. It was doing a spread on the gakti, which is the traditional, what she's wearing, the traditional Sami attire, and then talking about the different, which ones are kind of ceremonial gakti and, kind of everyday gakti. And so she wore a traditional gakti because she's from, even though this was shot in Sweden, there's a region called Sápmi, which kind of spans northern Norway, Sweden, Finland, and then into kind of the Kola Peninsula. So all of that is Sápmi. So she is from Sápmi, but she's actually from the Norway side, of Sápmi. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot you can tell just from the fabric. They say it's like your identification card. You can tell immediately down to which family.
Wow.
Even just built from the gakti. And I like this because of also the light, as well. And it was actually, kind of lights in your yard where you just got like lampposts. So it was just more the lamppost lighting, and stuff. So
it says it looks like an ancient forest on their heads. Donnie's right. It actually does it. The reindeer look like they have trees on their heads, Their antlers are just so amazing, Yeah.
And the one thing I didn't want to say is, because I told you before I was an oil painter, you can see that how I edit the photo is very, almost sometimes heavy-handed, right? Because it's vibrant, is lots of contrast, because that's what my eye sees. It just comes from my past of of kind of heavy oil painting. So you can see that in the photos.
No, actually I do in a lot of your photos. I see that now. And that's a really, really interesting part of your history that I so appreciate knowing now about you, and your work, and, I mean, there's just beautiful scenery everywhere you go. I mean, I love the boats, lined up here in parallel to each other. Beautiful, beautiful moment. But I'm gonna actually introduce for a second our my co-producer, Jonathan Borstein. The reason I'm bring Jonathan on for a second is Jonathan's a big fan of motorbikes and motorcycles, and I have to tell you, we saw this photo, and I had to put it in the slideshow just for Jonathan. But it's also just a great moment. Jonathan, introduce yourself, please. You're muted, Jonathan. He does this all the time. Jonathan, you're muted.
Here we are. Jonathan Borstein. I am full-time flaneur, sometime writer, part-time tech. The motorcycle thing that Stefan was referring to is that among motorcyclists, there's almost like a cult following of what are called overloaded motorcycles. The bikes of burden, and it's just some small little motorcycle, a person, and this immense amount of cargo.
Yes.
And look at it. How do you do that? How do you see where he's going?
Yeah.
If that was me, Lola, I'd be sitting on the back of it wondering, okay, when are we going to crash?
Correct. No, but I mean, I really like this. This is actually quite an old photo, but I took this in Cambodia, and what I just liked about it, obviously, the guy with the glass holding it, but then who is driving? Is he the one driving? Is what's going on? So it's a photo that kind of is a bit layered, in terms of what's going there. Obviously, we know there's somebody in front of him, but from this angle, it looks like, okay, what's up? What's going on there?
It's one of my favorites. It's a great photo. It's such oh my gosh, I'm just unable to part from these. Nancy loves your photos.
Thank you so much.
Nicole has so much talent. Do we have any other comments, John? Damon Brown, Jonathan Borstein, there he is. Rose Horowitz, Jonathan's fan club is coming out.
I love it.
All right, Jonathan, thank you very much, buddy. Okay. Jonathan is responsible for driving the car behind the scenes, taking care of all the comments, and helps me with the narrative of the show. And we're a real team. And I so appreciate him being my co-producer. He volunteers for this effort, and it's a tremendous honor to have him on. Tachi, whoa, let's go back to Tachi. What does Tachi say? Tachi says, what a great photo. Okay, Tachi is a big photography fan. Nicole says, that reminds me of my trip to Vietnam. Yes. So Donnie says, incredible, and on and on and on. So, the faces, Lola, just tell so many stories. I have to tell you, I had to combo these two because they're just two beautiful moments of two beautiful people, just gorgeous. All the faces you've captured, all the cultures, the romantic moments. Oh, what a sweet moment here. I mean,
that's in Sarajevo.
Oh man, I saw this and I just sat there and I was trying to think, wow, they're in love, right?
Yeah. And also, something private is going on there, and then to be able to, they let me just kind of sneak in and be part of it. It's something. Those are privilege.
What I love most about the moment that you captured here is that his head is just perfectly turned at that moment, and you don't, because of his hair, that strand of hair that's coming over his eye, you don't see his eyes, but you know that he's like just totally like enamored by the woman that he's with.
Yeah, I mean, you can see from her face, how she's just
Absolutely. But now let's get to your special look and your special beauty, because I have to tell you, I want you to start talking about the other special part of what you're about and who you're about, which is helping artisans around the world with local purse. We want to hear all about local purse, and I have slides set up. So why don't you tell us about it as I go through some of these slides, which I think may not be directly related, but some are and some aren't, but they'll tell the story as you tell the story.
Correct. Okay. So, when the pandemic hit, the travel industry just came to a standstill. I mean, I was actually on my way on assignment to St. Petersburg, Russia, and just everything stopped. Right. And so I said, you know what? Immediately, my mind went back to the local guides and the artisans and the people that I meet a lot when I travel, because that's my beat as a travel, photographer, is mostly kind of being with people, culture, people that are preserving. And so I said, okay, what can we do to help? And so I connected with a co-founder, Sarah Mansouri, who is from Iran, amazing woman. And so we created what we call Local Purse. And Local Purse is a web-based platform that allows us to support guides and artisans through live video shopping. Mm-hmm. All right, which that means a lot of companies were pivoting to virtual experiences, but we realized that you can only go on a virtual experience of Paris for, it's you could watch that video on YouTube, but what connects you to a place is usually what you bring back from the place. If you think about it, I got this scarf in Marrakesh, or I got this sarong in Bali, it creates that additional connection to the place. So we said, how can we create that connection digitally to help artisans? And so we created this kind of live video shopping platform where, you can book an experience, maybe for example, right now you can book a traditional Berber rug experience in Marrakesh, and then the guide takes you through the souk, and then you visit Aziz and his shop, and then he shows you different rugs and talks about the different tribes, and then you can buy live dynamically. So it's something that we created, and this is where my background in tech, as a programmer came in, because we had to create this MVP quickly, and so I was part of that process, getting my hands into the code as well and coding. Right. And so we've gone live with our beta, and we're very early on in it.
Let's treat everybody to a little clip about Local Purse, okay?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Here we go. Let's take the banner and ticker off just for 1 second. There we go. Oh, right. Wow, that's just beautiful. Lola, oh my God. Donnie says, and I was going to say the same thing. So Donnie just stole my line. This is a brilliant project. Wonderful, says Rose Horowitz. Man, my heart is full for what you're doing with this. I have to tell you, because being an artist, and always creating something, and you too, we know how hard people who create things work. And arts and crafts and markets and all these places, people work so hard to make the money that they make to raise their families, to provide for their families. What you're doing is brilliant. I hope that Local Purse ends up being one of the biggest, winning projects of this pandemic. Not that any project shouldn't be, all of them should be. But I want everybody to check out Local Purse. We've been running the Instagram handle on the bottom here. Follow Local Purse at My Local Purse on Instagram. Please check it out. You can do these virtual trips with Local Purse and shop virtually through Lola and her network of guides and people out there. Let's help the world out, everybody, and let's check out Local Purse, okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh,
so
no, please.
Yeah. So we're currently onboarding a couple destinations, and it is a long process to onboard because we have to make sure the whole supply chain, works all the way.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, here's an endorsement. Here's an endorsement right here from someone, Ann Becker. I pulled this off of Instagram. She said, "I woke up this morning and went to Marrakesh. How cool is that?" And she's not there literally, but she was. I loved wandering through the Medina and visiting a women's nonprofit and learning about and seeing the artisanry and gorgeous colors of many different style Berber rugs. To top it all off, after a year of lockdown, interacting with the local guide and business owner was truly a joyous experience. Thank you so much, Local Purse and Intrepid Traveler. Wow. 5 stars, Lola.
Yes. No, we're really grateful, and we're really young, like I said, a young startup. So we're just very early on in our journey, but we're really moving fast and trying to get the right partners on board, the right funding, everything. So
right. Well, I have to tell you, over 100 million people have lost their jobs because we had to stop traveling. Yeah. And the most impacted, as you say here, within our travel community are professional guides and local vendors. And you know what? My heart goes out to them. I hope that anything I do, other people do to bring knowledge of Local Purse to the world, I hope that it booms, and I hope they make a living,
Yes.
So once again, do you want to mention about Intrepid Traveler here?
Yeah, so Intrepid is our global partner, right? So we are onboarding lots of different guides and small artisans and independent guides as well. But Intrepid was our kind of go-to-market launch partner, because and we went with them in Marrakesh, and so we're onboarding more destinations with Intrepid as well as other destinations. So we're looking at Lagos, we're looking at Argentina and all other places as well. So onboarding soon. So
okay, well, wonderful. Everybody, check out Intrepid Traveler, Local Purse, Lola Akinmade, and please, I tell you, what a project. But okay, Lola, I can't believe I put this in at this moment. But
I know. This is actually.
But I have to tell you, you have to laugh in life, or else all you're going to do is cry.
Correct.
Thinking about all the people who are doing so much to survive, from the local artisans and everything else. Now I remember why I put this in here. I figured where we get to a point where we need some levity too.
Yes, no, absolutely. And this is a shot I took in Cambodia because I call this an entertaining yet disturbing shot. Because why should the monkey even have access to Fanta to be drinking,
Oh my God, this poor monkey is drinking that fancy crap.
I know, I'm like, oh, why? Well, this is wrong.
Oh, I'm never going to work.
It's not a good picture.
I'm never going to work for Fanta now because I just said that.
I know, but that's the thing though. It's because it was in Phnom Penh, and there was I can't remember the place, but I know there's a place where they had kind of monkeys there, and I just saw tourists kind of feeding the monkeys, and I'm like, don't do this. I mean, you're not supposed to do this, And then the guy just hands him the monkey a kind of Coke, a kind of Fanta, and I'm like, and so I took the shot, and this was from a distance with kind of telephoto, so that's why it's.
Yeah, it's a really, really, as you said, very comical and yet disturbing photo.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of my iconic shots. It's a win. This would win any animal contest. Goodness, but then at the same time, it's going to also make people angry. It's one of those shots where it's like, why?
Well, yeah, because
so it's one of those.
It's not good for the animal.
It's not good for the animal.
And that's all I meant to Fanta, by the way, was I didn't mean to slander the product.
No.
I'm just saying I've had a Fanta or two.
Yeah, it's not.
What I'm saying is I don't want to see a monkey drinking it, though.
Correct. Exactly.
So now, Lola, let's be as we're winding down here. There is one other thing I wanted to touch on was I wanted you to talk about Geotraveler Media because, like I said, you're not only an author, an entrepreneur, Local Purse, but you've also founded Geotraveler Media and Geotraveler Media Academy. Let me show this. Let me pull this off the screen since we've finished the slot and all that wonderful work. And let me pull up the other thing that I have ready for, sorry, 1 second here. Here we go. I'm going to mute myself for 1 second, and then I'm going to show this. Wow. I have to tell you, that is really, I have one of the things that I adore about you and that I look up to so much is that you are a multimedia specialist and talent. But that comes from not only your creative side, but your tech background. Yes. I mean, Lola, the world is your oyster. You know, I mean, you know, it really is incredible. That you can go to so many sectors and inspire so many people. But tell us more about Geotraveler and Geotraveler Academy now that we watched that.
Correct. So Geotraveler is actually my company. So I call it my umbrella company that covers all my creative things. So my freelance writing, my consulting, photography, speaking, that is. And then the academy is where I'm kind of giving back. You know, I've creating courses based on my experience, like with writing, with storytelling. And so we just launched it under the pandemic. This is something that people have been asking me to do for a long time. And so I just never really did. So the pandemic forced me to sit down and start building it. So this is something I'm going to keep building out. We currently have 4 or 5 courses, and then I'm going to start adding more photography courses. So this is, you know, as I kind of transition, you know, that I'm going to be doing more of this, spending a lot more time in the academy as well, sharing a lot of my skills and my own style of storytelling, both writing and photography. So that's what the academy is.
Wow. Really, really fascinating. I'm so glad to be able to share this information with everybody and let them know. You know, as we close out the show here, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget it because it really meant a lot to me, was tell us specifically, you have every year, you focus on a certain word, right? Mm-hmm. So let me take this off so we can concentrate here and talk. This is one-on-one here, you and me in the world. But tell me, you know, you focus every year on a certain word, and 2020, the word that you picked out was energy.
Yes.
So what is the word for 2021, Lola? Because we need Lola right now.
Yeah, I know. So my word was release.
Release.
Right? Release. Because the pandemic just showed us, as we know, nothing is in your control, right? And so if you go through life trying to control everything, control every narrative, control every situation, it's not sustainable. And so for me, you know, even though I felt like I was just really open, I realized that there were some parts of my life I was still trying to control. And so this year it's kind of giving myself permission to just be, to just create something and release it. Whatever happens, right. Taking away that pressure off of myself, allowing myself to be also mediocre if I want to be, you know, just releasing kind of the expectations I put on myself, you know, that are kind of causing me to not kind of breathe, you know. So that's kind of what the release is. It's just releasing and releasing whatever strongholds I still have left in my life, or that I'm trying to control unnecessarily. So. Right.
Wow. I have to tell you, that's powerful stuff. And, you know, I thank you for telling us about it. And, but the one question I have though also is, and I had to ask this, is how do you pick the word though? How do you decide on the word?
the word kind of just comes naturally to you, right? Because you start seeing patterns in your life. You start kind of assessing your mental state, your emotional state, and then based on what you need, the word kind of just bubbles up to the surface. So, for example, the year before it was energy. I realized that there was a lot of kind of draining energy in my life that I needed to remove, and then just curate the energy around my space, the people I let in, the people I need to push out, stuff like that. So the word just naturally comes based on how you're feeling in that year, in that time, emotionally, mentally. So it's a word that just organically comes.
Mm-hmm. So. Okay. Well, Lola, that's a great way to close the show. I have a couple of quick promotions that I have to do. Would you stay? I know it's late, but would you stay behind the scenes for 2 minutes? And then I just wanted to say goodbye to you. Yes, but everybody, I hope that everyone that's been watching YouTube and everywhere else, please share this broadcast. Let Lola know that she's appreciated and all the work that she does.
Thank you all so much.
She stayed up ultra late for us to do this show all the way from Sweden. And I hope that everybody checks out everything about you. Damon says words are so powerful. They frame our world. Montagna says great show. Thank you. So many people. Lola, I'll be right back. Thank you so much for being here. I'll be right with you. Okay. Okay, Lola. Thank you. Okay. So, folks, the Spin It Social Hour is coming to a close here, but please stay tuned for 1 second. I wanted to tell you about a couple of things. One in particular is that Stefan Falke, a guest of ours previously, twice, has a great project at the Rockefeller Center. A flag project is on. And he has a photo being displayed right now in the Rockefeller Center flag project. So please check it out at Rockefeller Center flag, and flag project rather. And I have a little surprise in store later this month, and I'll let you know about that in due time, with Stefan, one of my favorite photographers and human beings on the face of this earth. The other thing I wanted to say is that on Monday, I will be bringing Renita Roy on for a Spin It Social Hour update, because Renita has been named one of the Magnum Foundation's 2021 fellows. And I have to tell you, I am so proud and excited for Renita. I had to share this. So the 2021 Magnum announcement was just today. And these are their 2021 Photography and Social Justice Fellows. And here is the list. And in this list right there is Renita Roy from India. So hats off to Renita. Renita, we're so proud of you. And I have to do a Spin It Social Hour update on Monday. And Renita is going to tell you all about being named one of the Magnum Foundation Fellows for 2021. Renita, God bless and congratulations. So, folks, once again, Stefan Kaplan for the Spin It Social Hour. Thank you for being here. It's been an incredible, incredible hour and a half. And I'm lining up a great guest in 2 weeks from now. You'll know about them very soon. But please be well, take care of yourselves, and stay in touch and connect with me on all channels at large. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.